guys, my name is Heather and I'm the owner of Leavenly.com, and I'm partnering with FIT4MOM to bring you this video about how to make your very own sourdough starter from scratch. And I'm so thankful to be partnering with FIT4MOM because they have been my tribe since day one. My daughter's now 3, and when she was first born I joined FIT4MOM as a stroller strider, and I've been a member ever since. It's how I've met my mama tribe. It's how I've met so many of my friends. I got back into shape. I felt better about myself. And so now I have JoJo and she's 3. Lyle turns 2 next month. And I'm 5 months pregnant with our 3rd. So life's a little crazy around here. And so that's actually how Leavenly was born. I made a blog because I wanted to tell other mamas that it's possible to bake sourdough bread at home with kids running around. It's not that hard. Sourdough has this reputation that precedes it, and it doesn't have to be that way at all. I spread my method out over 3 days, which sounds like a lot, but the first day you're in the kitchen for 5 minutes. The second day will be your longest day. It's over 5 hours, but you're in and out of the kitchen, and your hands are in the dough for 5 or 10 minutes at a time, and then you're gone for half an hour. So that's your longest day, but it's not a lot of commitment. And then day 3, you're baking bread, and you have fresh sourdough bread for your family, and what's better? So that's why Leavenly was born, and I'm so excited to be here to talk with you guys about starter, because starter is the very base of our sourdough. And you can think about sourdough like how you would add yeast to bread, and you add yeast to bread to help it rise, and you add yeast to cinnamon rolls to help it rise. You add starter to sourdough to help it rise. And there are yeasts in starter, it's just they're not commercial yeasts. They're not industrialized, they're not man-made, they're from the air. They're off your hands, they're off the flowers. So they're these wild yeasts that live, and also bacteria, so the lactobacilli that live in there too. They live in this really cool symbiosis. You can get totally nerdy about it and really delve into it, but right now we're gonna just scratch the surface. So it's gonna be a living, breathing creature that you have. I recommend on day 1 to try to think of a fun name. Maybe let one of your kids name it. Because there were studies done that show that if you have a name for your starter, you're more apt to feed it and take care of it. So go figure. So for day 1, well, real quick actually, let's talk about the ingredients you need. And this is the best part. All you need is flour and water. And that's literally it. If all you have is all-purpose flour, or similarly a bread flour, you can do a starter with just white flour and water. Just expect that it's going to take a little bit longer, because those nutrients aren't really there that the microbes need to eat. There are some, but most of them are stripped out. And so that's why I do a mix of whole wheat and white flours. And on the other opposite end of the spectrum, if you use rye flour, somehow that flour attracts these enzymes and it makes these microbes just explode. And you could bake with a rye starter within 5 days. So it's really fast. I've personally never done it just because I don't stock rye flour in my kitchen, but I always have whole wheat flour and I always have white flour. So those are the ingredients that you need. And then in terms of equipment, I like to use a wide mouth mason jar. I have a few of these. They're just really easy. You could see through them. They're easy to mix in because the mouth is nice and wide. And they're also easy to clean because I just throw them in the dishwasher. And that's key when you're talking about trying to do this with kids around. And other equipment, just a basic kind of spatula and rubber band. Very simple. The other thing you will need though is a kitchen scale. And I can't stress this enough. You'll see all my measurements here are in grams. And 9 out of 10 recipes that you find online will be in grams. Doing volumetric measurements with cups and tablespoons, they can be wildly inaccurate. A cup of your flour could weigh a lot more than a cup of my flour. It all depends on how finely sifted it is, how long it's been sitting, and so there's so many factors. So weighing it is just so accurate. This was like 20 or 30 bucks on Amazon. And I like this one specifically because it's very narrow and I stack it beside my dinner plates. So it's easy to store. So definitely grab a kitchen scale. So let's get started on day 1. I did make some notes here. I'm not sure, I hope you can read them clearly, but I just wanted you to be able to kind of follow along with the recipe and also scribble down your own notes. So with day 1, I'm gonna mix day 1 with you guys. And then we'll kind of walk through the rest of the process, and then I'm gonna show you what a starter looks like at about day 8. Because I started my own starter about a week or 7 or 8 days ago now. So I'll show you what that looks like. It's wildly different and it's very cool. So for day one, we're going to weigh 100 grams of warm water, and that's what this is. I already pre-weighed it. It's just warm water from the tap. And you're going to add 50 grams of your whole wheat flour, which is here. I've already weighed this too, just to keep it easy. So we're not weighing and mixing like crazy on here. And then another 50 grams of your all-purpose flour, and that's what I have here. So I'll just put that in here. And then you just mix this all together. And it's going to be a very sticky, sludgy mess, as you can imagine. And try to scrape all the dry flour off the sides so that it's all really well incorporated. And that is literally all you do. There's your starter. You've already begun. I like to see how the sides kind of get a little yucky. I like to kind of scrape the sides down just so that I can look through the jar and see what's going on. And that's it. And you're done. Just like that. So here's your starter. You officially have a sourdough starter. What you're going to do then is you're going to grab your rubber band and you're going to put it around the jar, kind of at the level of where the dough is inside, because that way you can see easily if it's doubled in size or if it's risen at all. So just like that. So when you look in, mine's kind of got a heap in the middle. It's kind of hard to see, but it's along the edge there. And that way you can see if there's any activity, and we're going to touch on that in just a minute. Then you're going to cover this very lightly. You're not going to screw a lid on it. This is all I do, is I use the inside of the lid, just like that, and put it on. Because what happens is, over time, in a few days, there's going to be a lot of CO2 being made by those microbes, and the gas is going to want to escape. So this way it can kind of escape by itself. And if you screw that on really tight, you're going to have a little dough bomb in your kitchen, and it's not going to be fun to depressurize that. It might depressurize itself. So you don't want that. So don't recommend that. If you're not using a jar, what I recommend is just putting it in a bowl and just covering it lightly with plastic. You could also do a rubber band around the plastic, and the gas could escape through that. So that's it. You're going to put this somewhere in a, warmish spot, but not hot. So ideally your kitchen environment would be about 70 to 80 degrees. And so that's about what sourdough likes too. If it's a little bit cooler in your kitchen, it's totally fine. It's still going to work. It just might take longer. And if it's warmer in your kitchen, you can expect that it's going to be a lot more active. So you can kind of control the temperature a little bit, but just keep an eye on it. And also I recommend taking a lot of notes too. Like day one, here's what I did. Here's what flour I used. Here's what it smells like. It smells like sweet flour, like a batter. And that's going to help you later down the road when you look back and you're like, oh yeah, I remember. So that's your day one starter. For day two, you're going to weigh 25 grams of this new starter, and you're going to put it in a new jar, and then you're going to just throw all this away. So this is now garbage. You have a new jar with 25 grams of starter in it, and you're going to add 100 grams of warm water, and then I swirl that for a minute to kind of incorporate it, break it up a little bit. And then you add 50 grams of your flour, your whole wheat flour, 50 grams of your all-purpose flour. And that's going to be your motto for the next week, is 100 grams of warm water, 50 grams of each flour. And then just mix it up really well, just like we just did. And cover it, just like we did, lightly, and mark it with your rubber band. So it's the exact same thing we did on day one. On day three, you're going to kind of start to look for signs of activity. And that's going to look like your starter might be a little bit above the rubber band. For example, it might look like that when you come and look at it. It might not be that high. It might be like a little bit. You might see some little bubbles through the side and on top. And that's a really good sign. So just keep feeding as normal and note that. And the other thing to note before you feed it is, what does it smell like? And you'll notice this smell evolution. As your starter becomes more and more sour, you will smell a more distinct sour smell. At first it smells kind of like beer, like fermenting beer. And then maybe the next day it might smell a little bit more nutty. And then the next day you'll be like, oh yeah, that smells sour. So that's awesome. That's exactly what we want. And then so I put for day 4, I put repeat number 3 each day, because it's literally the same thing. You're going to come in the kitchen and feed your starter just like you have been for those days take notes of the activity that you see. And then by day 7, you're gonna wanna watch for how long it takes to double in size. So around like a week, you're gonna wanna keep a closer eye on it through the day after you feed it and see when it's doubling in size. So I'll show you my day 8 starter. That's this guy. I named him Newbie. He's got his lid on him. So check this out. I fed him last night at about 8:30 or 9 p.m. and it's right now 11 in the morning. It looked like it was actually higher than this. If you can see right there, it's risen and then now it's falling. So it was about up to the top of the jar. It's more than doubled, and it was about in 8 hours. And so it smells kind of sweet and very mildly sour. This is probably ready to bake with. Personally, I err on the side of caution. I don't want to have a failed loaf. So I'll probably feed this guy for 2 more days. I'll probably take it straight to 10 days and then try to bake with it. And I think it's probably going to be ready. And then I'll just have to give it away because I already have 2 starters on the go. I don't need 3. So that's how you do it. This is your day 8 starter. Do you see the difference? It's amazing. It's kind of runny a little bit. This is very thick. It doesn't move anywhere. You can see there's bubbles on the side. So it changes dramatically. It's a very cool science experiment too. If you have young kids, they definitely get them involved. My daughter's too young for that, but if you have a science-minded kid, they could totally geek out and you could show them that science. And so that is how you make a sourdough starter. It's very easy. You're just gonna wanna watch for that activity when it's doubling and then falling reliably, and preferably in like less than 8 hours. And when that's happening, you can bake with your starter. So it's just that easy. We can demystify everything about sourdough right at this point. So everything else that you might need, you can absolutely find on my website, Leavenly.com. I have a resources page there. There's lots of recipes on there, step-by-step guides, and like I said, there's that huge free ebook that you can download and just reference whenever you need to. So I hope this was helpful. This was so much fun, and I'm so grateful to be here. And you definitely send me an email too if you guys have any questions. Unfortunately, this isn't a live recording, but if you send me an email to heather@leavenly.com, then I will respond. We can troubleshoot your bread. We can figure out what's going on. And I'm always here. I'm always accessible. So thank you guys so much. Good luck and happy baking.